It is truly incredible to be here in Venice. I think I'm almost crying. Uh, it's until 2 days ago, we were not able to leave Canada to come here. And for that reason, my presentation was created using the video technique, which I will show you. My last visit to Venice was 49 years ago. I was a young student, or actually going to be a student in architecture, and the city is forever the same. The only thing that has changed is myself. My hair was very long, not as white, of course, and I stayed at the student hostel. I must admit that the shower was very shocking because I put my arm in and I thought I was at the North Pole. It was so cold, and here we were in a warm city. I must say that at this point in time, I'm in a better location. The shower in the hotel is hot and is very comfortable. So this is a voyage of discovery. I think we have all come together today to present our projects, and I've been really happy to discover the work of colleagues that I don't know, colleagues from Italy, colleagues from around the world, and at this point in time, it becomes a discovery for you of the work that I do. It has been 40 years since I've been in architecture, and basically I started doing landscape, then mostly interior design, and now architecture. So in fact, although I've advanced in age, it's almost like starting a career again. What I wanted to say is that I love my city, Montreal, and these projects are in Montreal. There is a certain similarity between Montreal and Venice for one reason. All the older areas were always a community built around the parish church. And these three projects relate to three of these areas that have certain characteristics that are common and that come together to show you what Montreal is, and therefore it's a visit for you to my city. Also, these projects are possibly different from what we have seen to date because they're on small properties in the inner city. They're actually repairing and rebuilding the city by creating new architecture where there was holes due to perhaps demolitions or other situations that occurred. And therefore, I've entitled my presentation "Of No Small Importance," because in fact, all the houses we've seen today are not large projects, but they are extremely important because they provide shelter to people. They create the spaces that are going to be their life spaces. And these projects are that same language. And therefore, I chose to present the three projects under the theme of no small importance. With this being said, I will become a member of the audience, such as you are, step back, and let our people here put on the presentation. Thank you. And in fact, this building that we created is of no small importance. Here we are at the corner in this historic section of Montreal. The promise of the project that we wanted to is that of the environment that is locally surrounding the site that was chosen for the project. This is a unique environment. It was actually created about 150 years ago when this was the northern limit of the city of Montreal. This area in particular was of great significance. It actually links by this street two of the most major parks in Montreal, Park Lafontaine to the east and Mount Royal Park to the west, of where I'm actually sitting at this point in time. When we were designing this building, we took note of the rich textures that gave the environment its principal character. A building had been demolished. There was a hole in this urban fabric. And here we had the chance to reweave this fabric, to bring it together again, and to make it meaningful. All the buildings are of small stature, they're all family houses, and they all have unique characteristics as if they represented a family that lived in it. Because the site is somewhat larger, we had to fit in 8 living units, and this is somewhat different than the neighbors that we have. We chose the Montreal red brick. It actually blends with the neighbors on each side of the building. And it's for this reason that we have very specific brick textures. And the bricks are actually woven together in different patterns as one progresses around the building to actually define sections of the building that create these dimensions that relate to the neighbors. We wanted to bring the corner together again. We wanted to recreate this corner and this strength of occupying space where buildings touch onto the sidewalk, and to respect the neighborhood. It's a very living part of Montreal. While it is 150 years old, it is one of the youngest, most vibrant feeling areas of the city. In the modern world of today, we are extremely impressed with major buildings, large towers, 50, 60, 70 stories or more. But the reality is that the great majority of people live in small houses, small areas, and small neighborhoods. And this project we are particularly proud of because we inspire ourselves from the neighbors and we create textures, we create dimensions that make unto the fact that we're reweaving the fabric and the texture of this city, this neighborhood of Montreal. There will be a second and third project. I invite you to visit the CasaPlatform exhibit in Venice during the month of May to August this year, 2021. My name is Gary Conrath. Bienvenuto à la Casa Mia, Ice Shore House. Here we are. In creating the design for this house, I discovered that on the river, for many, many years, there was a tradition of the ice cutters who would come in the spring, cut the ice, and they would keep it for use during the summer. And at that point in time, I decided I should explore how I could create a metaphor that would actually illustrate this activity. Really minimalistic, good flow between the spaces, and good flow also between inside and outside. This project was also awarded at the German Design Awards. An important component of the house is actually the glass surfaces. The major one is actually a stretch of glass that joins the front to the back. The greenish glass that is used in the house is in fact a reference to water, which when we look at it in the depth becomes tinted green or blue. And also ice, when it is seen in a certain depth, has a coloration of this nature. This is actually the natural color of glass. And since we wanted to have a very natural representation of the materials, it was chosen to present it as it is. Wood is very present. We wanted a concept and want a living environment that feels very natural. So by use of the wood, we create a lot of atmosphere, which is in between urban and country. The finishes are completed by the concrete floor. The geothermal feeling to the wood, to the depth of the structure that is there, we wanted the floor to be very complementary instead of in conflict. There was an effort to relook at these materials, see how they could fit together. In this concept, they are interlocking elements that are very heavy and very transparent. So there's a contrast which creates an intrigue. At the same time, it obviously lets the light in to a great extent. I invite you to visit the CasaPlatform exhibit in Venice during the month of May to August this year, 2021. And this is the third project coming out. And this is the window project. This project is very much a transition project. So this actual site where this building is placed was a coal yard. This area was initially built as a working class area. Houses and factories were intermingled, and progressively, after 1950, people would move away, go to the suburbs where life was considered greener and better. And therefore, this area fell into disarray. It was basically somewhat abandoned. This site then became available for redevelopment. In front of where I'm standing was a major paint production plant and stockyard. So it gives you the idea of what really was here as we were getting into the process of wanting to redevelop this site. The whole area had the potential of transforming itself again into something viable, into something new, into something attractive to people who would want to come back to the city center to live, which is now the tendency. This project was very challenging because this was a personal investment. It was considered a major financial risk to actually invest here, to build something anew, while many of these houses were semi-abandoned, were very neglected. Slowly but surely, people began to buy them. People began to renovate them. And all this portion of the neighborhood was able to become regenerated. And this was the first project, the seed, in fact, that encouraged that process to occur. The concept came forth when I happened to be on vacation. There was the sand, there was the ocean waves, and you can see how that's actually translated through my impressions into the building here, where we have the tall grasses in front of the building and the sand-colored brick that was actually used to clad the building. At each corner of the building, I created a text which is inscribed on this side in French and on the other corner in English, the two languages of Montreal. These texts talk about this evolution of architecture, this evolution of living, this evolution of Montreal as people progressed and habitation progressed from the initial city core along the river out to the west end of the island. This text is a very interesting way to have a dialogue with the citizens as far as what architecture means and what architecture can mean for them through the gist of making architecture. I invite you to visit the CasaPlatform exhibit in Venice during the month of May, August this year, 2021. I just wanted to take the opportunity to read you the text that was written on the building, because actually the text is very integral to the work we do as architects, all of us as architects. And I felt it was a way that I could, in a sense, connect with the citizens, but also connect with you fellow architects who have come here to present their project today. Lifted by the rising wind of enthusiasm, gust giving forth to gust, forms both imaginary and fluid, but buoyantly begin to burgeon. Not noticeable at first, but progressively they seem constrained by invisible hands, adopting configurations more and more orthogonal. Prompted by this phenomena, initial enthusiasm gives way to a growing curiosity as the urban will challenges the definition of place and dwelling. Here for more than a century, houses of brick and wood, freestanding, joined, above, below, and beside, with archways to yards, reshaped and repositioned on this former coal yard. These streets, the essential bond of continuity between Ville-Marie, the initial core of Montreal, and successive suburbs flowing forth along the river of ideas, the river of places, the river of boundaries, all that harbor humanity. I would like to thank the platform group for having organized the event and giving myself and the others such a great opportunity to communicate as far as our work is concerned and to communicate with each other as professionals. So Viva platform, Viva Venice.